In the mid-14th century, a silent killer swept across Europe, leaving devastation in its wake. The Black Death, the bubonic plague, wiped out an estimated 25 to 50 million people in just a few years. It reshaped economies, altered the balance of power, and left scars on culture that lasted for centuries. But what if it never happened? Picture Europe in the year 1347. Cities are bustling, trade routes hum with activity, and populations are climbing after centuries of slow growth. Now remove the single most catastrophic epidemic in recorded history. Without the plague, millions of lives are spared. Entire families, towns, and even dynasties that were erased would survive. The labor force would remain intact, meaning farms, workshops, and ports would keep producing at full capacity. Food shortages would be less common, and the great economic collapse triggered by the plague might never occur. The feudal system, weakened by the shortage of workers after the plague, might have remained stronger for far longer, without desperate lords needing to offer higher wages and better conditions to keep peasants on their land. The social mobility that followed the Black Death could have been delayed by centuries. Peasants might have remained bound to the land, and the rise of the middle class, which eventually fueled the Renaissance, could have been slowed or even stunted. Speaking of the Renaissance, many historians credit the plague with accelerating it. With so much death, there was a massive redistribution of wealth, inheritance shifted fortunes, and cities like Florence suddenly had merchants with money to spend on art, science, and innovation. Without the plague, wealth might have remained concentrated in the hands of old noble families, who preferred stability over experimentation. The Renaissance might still have come, but perhaps in the 1600s or 1700s, not the 1400s. There's also the matter of science and medicine. The Black Death forced Europe to confront its medical ignorance. It inspired public health measures, city sanitation improvements, and early quarantine systems. Without it, progress in these areas might have been slower. Diseases could have continued to ravage populations with less resistance, as the urgency to understand contagion wouldn't have been as strong. But not all effects would have been negative. Without the plague, Europe's population would have continued to grow rapidly. This might have fueled faster exploration, colonization, and the rise of powerful nation-states earlier in history. With more workers and soldiers, kingdoms could field larger armies, fund bigger projects, and expand their influence. Wars could have been fought on an even greater scale, and earlier with consequences we can only imagine. The absence of the plague would also have ripple effects beyond Europe. The Ottoman Empire, which rose to dominance partly in the wake of weakened European powers, might have faced a far more unified and populous continent. Trade networks across Asia and Africa might have looked different, and the global balance of power could have shifted dramatically. But there's a paradox here. While the plague brought unimaginable suffering, it also broke old systems and forced change. Without it, humanity might have avoided years of grief, but it might also have stayed locked in the structures of the medieval world for much longer. The leap into the modern age could have been delayed. So in a world without the Black Death, Europe might have been wealthier in people, but poorer in ideas. A continent full of life, but perhaps slower to question tradition, slower to innovate, slower to break free from the grip of feudalism. The world we know today might be unrecognizable, not because we advanced too quickly, but because we advance too slowly. It's a haunting thought that sometimes history's greatest tragedies are also its greatest catalysts. Without the Black Death, humanity might have been spared an ocean of suffering, but also might have missed the spark that helped ignite the world we live in today.